So good evening, judges. We are team PG 0119 and I am here to present the credit analysis of DLF Limited. So starting on with the industry analysis, the real estate industry comprises of five major sectors, that is residential, commercial, retail, hospitality and the SEZ. And the real estate industry has been impacted severely by COVID. It includes issues with the procurement of raw materials from China, labor shortages and payment delays. Uh, but however, the industry is still poised to grow at a high pace, with market size reaching 1 trillion USD by 2030. On the demand side, rapid urbanization, growth in the tourism, and growing economy will contribute to the growth, whereas easy financing through the PE investments and policy support of the government will contribute to the supply side. Now, we have also analyzed the industry using the Porter's five forces on a scale of 0 to 5, with 5 being the most attractive. This gives us a score of 3.37, implying that the industry is mildly attractive for the investors and the creditors. Now coming to the company analysis, the key highlights of DLF Limited include its presence across 24 cities across India with 189% relative market share and 44,000 crores GAV of operational portfolio. Now, DLF has its presence across all the five real estate sectors that I mentioned previously, and it has a strong foothold in each of these sectors. Mm, Now, coming to the business model of DLF, now DLF majorly derives its revenue from the sales of constructed units and the rentals and lease from office and retail segments. Its value proposition majorly lies in the real estate development and management and investment services. If you look at the ESG update for the company, then DLF is part of the Dow Jones Sustainability Indices and is well recognized for its ESG practices. Mm, Now, talking about the management, so DLF has a very diverse management team and has 16 members on the board of directors. Recently, we saw a change in the chairman from KP Singh to Rajeev Singh, and also a reduction in the corporate governance risk for the board by 1 point. That is, it changed from 6 to 5. Now, coming on to the financial analysis for DLF, the company has significantly reduced its long term debt over the years through fundings and share issuance, and promoters also have the skin in their game with 75% holdings. However, if we look at the granular level, the debt distribution has 52% of short-term debt. DLF has the buffer of cash to meet these obligations, but we look at that the crunch cash flows might require refinancing and increase in the obligations for DLF in the near future. Now, in the financial analysis, another key metric is the solvency of the company. So, debt to equity ratio of DLF has reduced over the years, and is expected that it will be reducing further. It is significantly lower as compared to the industry averages, and the net debt to EBITDA it has also reduced, but is significantly high. If you look at the interest coverage, it is following the industry trend and going along in line with it. Uh, However, like if you look at the return on equity from the DuPont analysis perspective, it has seen a significant degrowth of 45%. And but if we remove the impact of the DTA reversal that the company underwent in FY20, it is at par with the FY19 levels itself. Now, next comes the liquidity analysis. So, the cash crunch situation of the company is majorly due to the pandemic, and it makes it a key point to consider for liquidity. But the company is still sitting on a sufficient cash reserve and has a cash flow visibility in terms of conversion of inventory into cash. So, the liquidity position is good for the company. Coming to the peer comparison, so DLF is a leading player in this industry and it has the highest market cap, with the key competitors being Oberoi Realty, Godrej Properties, Phoenix Mills, and Prestige. However, the company sees a negative PAT and a net margin, but it is majorly due to the DTA reversal that the company underwent in FY20. Mm, So if we come to the credit rating part, so it is rated by two major agencies, CRISIL and ICRA, with A plus being the long-term A plus rating on long-term instruments and A1 rating on the short-term instruments. The coming to the uh, Is my screen visible? Sorry, I think I lost it. Uh, yep. So coming to the key rating drivers, it includes the major strengths for the company includes a strong market position and the brand. It has a healthy financial risk due to low debt. It has a cash flow visibility in terms of the unsold inventory and dividend, and it has a strong liquidity position due to substantial cash reserves. However, the credit challenges for the company, these include the modest operational cash flows due to high overheads and due to the disruption caused due to pandemic, and there are tepid sales in the residential sector and inventory concentration causing a marketing like bringing in marketing risk for the company. Now, if we look at the some of the triggers that would be impacting the rating for the company going forward, so positive triggers include a ramp up of sales post the pandemic and the continuation of deleveraging of the company. However, on the negative side, if the pandemic situation continues and the third wave causes more disruption, then it would be a negative effect for the company. It will also lead to delay in the project execution and holding of inventories. Here comes the Altman Z-score. It predicts the probability of the company going bankrupt in the next 2 years. So although DLF is in the distress zone, like similar to the industry, it is still steadily rising and reducing the bankruptcy risk for the company. Mm, yep. So now after analyzing TLF on all these multiple grounds, we specify a rating methodology for assessing the credit risk. Like these are spread into 4 sections: industry, company, financial, and management, and with the weights as mentioned. So for this, we are using a scores would be assigned on a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being the least risky for the company. Firstly, for the industry assessment, we have taken 3 parameters: competitive industry, regulatory risk, and growth potential. And the weighted score for this industry assessment comes out to be 3.175. Then comes the company assessment. For this, the 4 parameters are competitive positioning, future outlook, operating risk, and ESG compliance. For this, the score comes out to be 3.35. Next is the financial assessment. The parameters includes profitability, liquidity, solvency, and the debt service coverage. Here the score comes out to be 3.6. And on the management assessment, we have taken 3 parameters: composition, competence, and skin in the game. For this, the score is 4.15. Uh, So combining all these sections and the weighted scores together, we get a final rating score of 3.55. And according to what our rating scale, the rating scale that we have developed, we would be willing to give it a triple B rating for the company. And further, if we look at the rating outlook, so we have a positive approach because the company is having a leadership position in the real estate sector. It is having prospective liquidation of the large inventory, and the company sustaining the deleveraging measures. So this is our outlook for DLF, and thank you so much. I'm open to questions now.
Yeah, thanks, Nikita. Jury members, over to you.
Yeah, hi. So on ESG, you said the company is well known for ESG. So what is it? What have they done?
Sir, on the ESG part, so it is forming part of the Dow Jones Sustainability Index. And so it is when we are looking at the social reporting and the integration it does, so it has achieved a score of 72. So it is majorly because of the policies that it follows, the risk management, and the data monitoring and review. So it is giving us so they are given the 18th rank out of 250.
Okay. On the slide on debt equity, things are improving, debt is coming down, but still with industry peer comparison does not compare as favorably. So if you can just come to the, yes, this one. So we see debt to EBITDA, debt to assets coming down, debt to equity also is coming down. But why is it that with industry, they're not comparing favorably? 1.22 against 1.66. So the interest coverage.
Okay, so for the interest coverage.
Yeah.
I believe that real estate is a cyclical industry. So it is evident because if you look at the industry graph and the interest coverage, it is moving in a cyclical manner. And if you look at what DLF is following, it is also following a cyclical pattern. So even if the debt is reducing, the cyclical nature of the company, of the industry in general, is causing the interest coverage to move in line with the industry average. I think this is majorly because the cash outflows for this industry and particularly DLF, those are fixed. But if you look at the cash inflows, they are highly variable and they are moving along with the projects that they are undertaking.
One last question. The rating
Yes.
given by CRISIL and ICRA is A+, whereas your rating is BBB+. Fair enough. If we were to summarize 3 points that due to these 3 reasons, you were giving a lower rating than CRISIL or ICRA, what would be those 1 or 2 or 3 points?
Okay, sir. So I think majorly it would be, if I look at the rating, what other exact rating drivers, one would be the high overheads and the pending tax litigations that the company is having. So these, if you look at what the pandemic has done to the company, so moving forward with the trend, so the company is not, the pandemic is causing disruption for the revenue and for the revenue of this company. So this is one point where I think there would be issues for the company in terms of getting the revenue. And second part is also around, if you look at the inventory that the company is holding, it was 9,000 crores for FY20 when this rating was given, and it is currently at 6,000 crores. So this high amount of inventory is leading to high overheads for the company as well, because they have to incur a cost and there is depreciation. So this is these are a few reasons that I think would lead to a lower rating.
Okay. Done from my side.
Also, Nikita, in your rating, which you say should be at BBB+, which I saw, what should be the commensurate spread over sovereign if DLF were to borrow in the market today?
Sorry, ma'am, I didn't exactly get what is
You have a
sovereign spread.
BBB+ rating for the bond for this
Yes.
issuer. What should be the spread over sovereign if they were to come to borrow in the market today?
Ma'am, if you could please tell me, like, what exactly is the spread over sovereign?
What is the rate of interest that they will borrow today?
I'm not really sure what exactly should be the rate of interest. I've not looked into what the rate they have used.
What is the total cost of borrowing on their balance sheet? What is that weighted average cost of borrowing for whatever plan you have?
The weighted average.
Total cost, whatever you have. Okay, no problem. Thank you.
Yes. Are there any more questions?
You mentioned about. Do you have any data around their, receivable? What is the position like? Receivable and payable.
Yes, sir. So I've not put exact data around the receivables part here, but like if you look at the asset, sorry, not asset turnover. So receivables turnover. So if you look around the receivables turnover for the DLF, it has increased from like 6.06 to 8.87, and this major chunk was happening only around the year of FY19. So this significant reduction in the receivables, it was because the company did a fair value measurement, and it led to a sudden jump in the receivables turnover. But still the company is not having a very high fluctuation of the receivables turnover, and it is moving in line. And similarly for the average collection period, this would also give us an idea about the payables like the receivables part. And same thing is happening with the FY19 because of the fair value measurement.
And do you have any idea about their potential plan in terms of unlocking or debt reduction or unlocking their assets? So how is the outlook going to be?
Okay, so a few things that I read were that they had been doing deleveraging till now. So the last deleveraging that happened till FY20, that was with like they got sold stakes to GIC and they got the funds from promoters. Apart from that, they are also like targeting of issuance of equity shares, and this would lead to further deleveraging for the company. And if you look particularly towards the inventory side. So they have reduced the inventory from 9,000 crores to around 6,000 crores in March 21. So they are looking progressively, they are looking going active towards reducing their inventory so that they are able to generate more cash for the company.
All right. All right. No more questions from us.
Yeah, hi, Nikita. You have a slide on Altman Z score. Can we go to that slide?
Sure, sir. Yes, sir, here it is.
You have calculated their Z score to be 1.54, right?
Yes, sir.
Which means that the probability of bankruptcy is high and it's in distress zone. Right. So why are you not rating it as speculative or as D or C?
So I believe that the nature of the industry is such that the companies would be having a high like a score in the distress zone itself, because because of the nature of the industry that it is classified as distress zone. But if we particularly look at the trend of the Altman Z score, so from FY16 till FY20, it has increased from 1.15 to 1.54. So it is progressively increasing over the years. And if you look at the scale for the Altman Z score, if like an increase in the score would lead to the company, like it would lead to a reduction in the probability of bankruptcy for the company. So the company is in general reducing its probability, but I think because of the industry in general, the company would be there in the distress zone.
Okay, thanks.